Good afternoon. The name of the book that story I'm going to tell today is Willie and the Hairy Man, and it's based on a book by Judy Sierra. Willie lived with his mama in a cabin at the edge of a swamp. Legend has it that Willie's father was on a ferry boat one day and fell off the boat into some icy, cold water. The people did a search for a while, but they could not find him and eventually called off the search. But some of the people said they heard laughing way back in the swamp, and they believed that the hairy man had gotten Willie's daddy. One day, Willie's mama was talking to him, and she said, "Willie, be careful wherever you go, because you know the hairy man got your daddy, and he'll get you too." Willie said to his mama, "No, ma'am, he won't get me, because wherever I go, I'll take my hound dogs." Because you know the hairy man don't like hound dogs. Since Willie's mama knew about conjure magic, she knew what Willie said was true. One day, Willie went into the swamp to look for kindling wood. As he walked along the edge of the swamp, it was very little kindling that he found, so he kept walking deeper and deeper into the swamp. Then all of a sudden he felt an ice-cold chill run up his back of his neck, and he turned around, and there was the hairy man face to face with Willie. Willie said, "Hello, Mr. Hairy Man, what are you looking at me like that for?" The hairy man said, "Just looking at you, Willie." And Willie looked down at the hairy man's feet, and he noticed that his feet were different. Feet were shaped like cow hooves and not like human feet. So Willie knew that he had never seen a cow up a tree, so he hurried and shimmied up the closest bay tree. The hairy man stood on the ground and looked at him, and he said, "Willie, come down here." And Willie said, "Why don't you come up here, hairy man?" The hairy man said, "Well, that's okay, I'll just wait right here, because you're going to get thirsty and you're going to get hungry. I'll wait right here." So Willie had an idea. He knew that the hairy man had known conjure magic, so he decided that he would try and see how much magic he knew. So he said, "Hairy man, I know you can do magic. Can you make things disappear?" Hairy man said, "Look at the end of the branch, Willie. That bird's nest that was there, is it still there? It's gone. It's done disappeared." Sure enough, the bird's nest was gone. Willie said, "Oh, shucks, that's just the bird's nest. You can't make something disappear that I know is there." And the hairy man said, "Look down, Willie. Where's your shirt?" Sure enough, the hairy man had made Willie's shirt disappear. Willie said, "Well, that's just an old shirt. Bet you can't make something else disappear." And Willie thought for a while, and he thought about that rope around his waist on his breeches. Said, "Hairy man, I bet you can't make this rope disappear." Hairy man said, "I can make all the ropes in this county disappear, not just that rope." Sure enough, the hairy man said, "Let all the ropes all over this here county disappear." Sure enough, the rope from Willie's pants fell, and as did all the other ropes. And Willie was smiling then, because that's exactly what he wanted him to do. Soon as the rope fell off his pants, he was holding him up, and he said, "Here, dog! Here, dog! Here, dog!" And up comes the hound dogs, barking and yapping. Off runs the hairy man. Willie shimmies down the tree and runs home, holding his breeches. When he gets home, he's telling his mama about the issue he had with the hairy man. And his mama said, "Well, Willie, you tricked him this one time. If we can trick him 2 more times, he'll leave us alone forever." And she said to Willie, "Tomorrow I want you to go into the woods, but I want you to leave the dogs here. I want you to go into the swamp, and I want you to find the hairy man. Now, if you tell that hairy man that he can't do something, guarantee that he will do it. So what I want you to do is I want you to tell him that he can't turn himself into some big animal, and then tell him he can't turn himself into a smaller animal. When he turns himself into a small, slow animal, I want you to pick that animal up and put him into his croquet sack, because he always carries a croquet sack. and throw him and the croaker sack into the lake or the river. Willie said, okay. The next day, Willie got up, and all the way into the swamp, he was whistling, trying to keep his courage up as he went to try and find the hairy man and try and do these other tricks on him. So when he gets into the swamp, Willie felt an ice cold chill run up the back of his neck like he had the other time. Sure enough, when he turned around, hairy man was staring right at him. Willie said to the hairy man, "Don't be looking at me like that, hairy man." The hairy man said, "Why not?" Said, "Hairy man, I'll bet you, because I know that you're one of the best conjure men in the county." "I most certainly am," said the hairy man. "I bet you can't turn yourself into a bear." Sure enough, the hairy man spins around, and when he stopped, he was a huge black bear with red eyes and drooling lips. Willie said, there's pretty good. I bet you can't turn yourself into an alligator." Sure enough, hairy man spins around again. There was a big alligator, one of the biggest alligators that Willie had ever seen, and he's looking down into the alligator's mouth with all his teeth looking at him. Willie said, "Oh, that's pretty good, but I bet you can't turn yourself into a slow baby possum." Sure enough, soon as he said it, hairy man spins around, knocked up all the dust in the world, and sure enough, there was a little possum on the ground. Willie hurried up, grabbed the possum, stuffed him in the sack, and ran over to the river and threw it in. And then Willie decided to run home. As Willie ran home, he heard the hairy man. "Willie, Willie, I'm gonna come get you tonight." Willie was so afraid. When he got home, he told his mama how he had tricked the hairy man. His mama sat in the rocking chair and rocked back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then finally she had an idea. She said, "Willie, I want you to go to the barn, and I want you to get one of the newborn pigs and bring him in to me." So Willie went out to the barn, and on his way to the barn, he saw this huge animal run down the road. It was a boar kind of animal, one of the biggest he'd ever seen. So he kept on walking to the barn, and then there came a horse-like animal, biggest horse he'd ever seen, but this horse had a horn that grew out of its nose. The one dog took out after the boar, and the other dog took off after the horse. Willie rushed over to the barn, got the little pig, and took it to his mama. Got the little pig to his mama. His mama said, "Now, Willie, check around and make sure that everything is sealed off." And Willie started a fire in the fireplace, made sure the shutters and everything were closed, made sure there was a broom across the doorway, because he knew that no evil thing could come across a broom handle. And Willie started hearing some scratching on the wall and some pounding on the door. And Willie, his mama told him to go up into the loft so the hairy man couldn't see him. But before he went up in the loft, she told him to put the pig in the bed and cover it up with the covers. So he did as his mama told him, and then he went up into the loft. The hairy man knocked on the door, and he said, "Mama, I come to get your young'un." And she said, "You can't have my young'un. You cannot have my baby." And he said, "I come to get your baby. He tried to play a trick on me, and I'm going to get him." And she said, "No, you're not either." And the hairy man said, "Then I'll bite you and poison you." And she said, "I'll bite you back and poison you." And then the hairy man said, "Then I'll send lightning and set your house on fire." And she said, "That's okay. I got plenty sweet milk that I'll pour over it and put the fire out." Then the hairy man said, "I'll send boll weevils to destroy all of your crop." And the mama said, I don't believe you would be that mean, hairy man. Yes, I would. Give me your baby. So she opened the door and let him come in. She said, he's over there. Hairy man came in, went over to the bed, pulled the covers back. There was the pig. He said, you tricked me. It's only a pig. And she said, yes, but he's your pig. But that's not your baby. Yes, it is my baby. That is my baby too. It's just not my young'un, but that is my baby, and you can have him. So the hairy man bust out the door and ran, knocking things down like a tornado had passed through. Willie came down, and from that day forward, they lived happily ever after. But the first thing they did was danced around the house and had a good day. And then the hairy man never came again to bother them, ever again, for their whole life. And they lived a long time. The end.